Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee with Adam and All the Things podcast. My name is Adam Martinez and I am your host. And welcome to the show. Um, won't be a show without some uh, coffee. Of course, as I gulp away. And you see in the backgrounds my dog right here. This is Handsome right here in the white. And other way, this is Buddy right here in the brown. They're my dogs. They'll probably be occurring guests as the show goes on, especially if I do it in this format. Uh, this is like straight off my webcam and my microphone's right here, so it's an easy setup. And my light is just basically my desk lamp. Anyways, okay, so the Coffee with Adam podcast, here we go. Today's episode is going to be about forgiveness. So, what happened this week was I had a bunch of the girls over. And it was just like a little kiki. And so, one of the girls had, as we were all talking, the subject came up. Not of forgiveness, but just she just had a rant of just being used, and she was really into her church, and she was having some troubles in her other life, and so she thought going to church would help, and she basically got taken advantage of by some of the other people there, not in a malicious way, but in a way that she was just voluntarily volunteered for things that she didn't really want to do. And so she ranted on how she was there at church every single day for trainings on things that she was doing the next day. She was volunteered to be the leader of a women's group, and she just was overwhelmed and just felt, overextended and used, and basically, she just felt used, and disregarded in a way, so that she had any kind that disregarded that she would have any kind of life outside of church, because she was just always volunteered for things, and she couldn't find a way to say no. And so so basically this event was her releasing those years of being oppressed in that way. And it just came out randomly in this moment right there on that couch right there, that one right there. And so I was there, and I, as much as I wanted to jump in and give my opinion, I was like, no, she needs this. She needs to hear. She needs to be heard. Sorry, she needs her ears right now, and she let it all out. And she was like, I'm supposed to be doing God's work, and God's work. How is this helping me? How is this of God's work is supposed to be helping? I didn't feel like I was doing God's work, and da 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 da, and and she just, at the moment she was done, she just like released it. And then so my thought of that was, what if the idea of everything that you went through was you were doing God's work, because God's lesson for you was to learn forgiveness. Boom. So anyways, that's what kind of like hit the conversation. Was what came to me was like, her being of service wasn't God's work. Her going through that situation to learn how to give forgiveness to people that don't know any better, even if they are followers, we're still human, and we still err. So one of my favorite sayings that I know, that I don't know if it's biblical, but it comes from Sister Act. One of the nuns says, "To err is human, but to forgive is divine." And so that always just stuck with me, to always keep in mind that forgiveness is a divine quality. It's a divine trait, because it takes on a type of needed understanding of what forgiveness actually is, and how extensive it is to the human mind when it is given, and when it is thought of, and when it is communicated about, and when it is understood. So let's get into it. Let's take another drink of this coffee right here. So forgiveness to me is something that is required to grow any relationship, let alone any spiritual relationship. Or is that the other way around? To grow any spiritual relationship, let alone any relationship, it's going to require a sense of forgiveness from the person that you wake up to next on the bed, on next to the. Sorry, I can't speak right now. Whether it's the person that you wake up next to, or it's the person that cut you off in the freeway, forgiveness is needed to be given for you to be released from that anger or frustration. So, next, what I'm going to say is, forgiveness is not always for the other person. Forgiveness is primarily, and probably always will be, for you. for your growth. Because let's take this idea. If somebody that hurts you or talks bad about you or lies to you and is deceitful to you, and um, in some karmic way it comes back to them, and they have this recollection that they did bad by you, and they need to come and apologize to you and ask you for forgiveness, and they beg and beg and beg and beg, and for you it might not be a big deal, or for you it might have been a big deal, and you work on it yourself and you try and you do the exercise work that that I'll suggest later on how to work on forgiving this person, and then you grant that person forgiveness. That was for you to have that forgiveness. Even though you say, "Hey, Larry, I forgive you for your trespass against me." Even though Larry gets that forgiveness, when Larry goes home, he will probably still feel like crap, because he hasn't processed what the forgiveness fully well-rounded or full-rounded it's meant for. So Larry could ask you, "Can you forgive me?" And you forgive me, like, "Yeah, Larry, I forgive you." Larry goes home and is like, "Oh, I got forgiveness." But nothing happens. It's because he didn't work on the idea of why he needed forgiveness. Why did he do those actions that caused the forgiveness to be needed in the first place? To fully go forward, and when you ask for forgiveness, and understand the reason why you're asking it. Because if you don't and you get that forgiveness anyways, it's not going to be fulfilling. It's not going to be understood. It's not going to be um, it's not going to be understood. It's not going to be recognized as the truth, because you're still most likely going to end up doing the action. A good friend of mine once told me, when you apologize for something, he told me, don't apologize for something if you plan on doing it again. Because when you apologize for something, it's because you understand the full well-roundedness of what the apology is for. Hey, I did something wrong. I understand it upset you, and I realized that, and I saw that how it affected our relationship, and I want to get us back on track, so I apologize. I won't do that again. Will you forgive me? That's how it goes, right? The whole understanding of what I did wrong. I see how it affected you. I'm sorry about that. Can we move on? Can you forgive me? There it goes. And so it's so easy to break down, like, oh yeah, I could do that. But when you're face to face with that person in the arena, like I've talked about in other episodes of Coffee with Adam, that's when it gets hard. That's when it gets frustrating. That's when it gets real, because you're in the arena. That's because you become vulnerable with admitting one thing and one thing only, that we are all horrible at admitting, is when we are wrong. Can I get an amen? I don't have sound effects. So that's the idea on forgiveness. Okay, so on the way to approach it, work on those exercises. The way I laid it out, it's very simple, and it's easy to acknowledge it, because once you acknowledge it, like, hey, I did something wrong, that's like, boom, the cat's out of the bag. I'm sorry, I won't do that again. It's like, what are you gonna do next? Hey, I did something wrong, I might do it again. No, that shouldn't be the way that it works. Um, so so yeah. So back to my homegirl. When I said that to her, maybe it's about forgiveness. That you need to forgive them, because when we are there in front of our creator, when we die, whether it's God, the universe, natural intelligence, sky daddy, however you want to say it, when we were there, he's not going to be like, oh, you trespassed against these many people and you didn't forgive any of them. He's going to be more like, you didn't forgive any of them, instead of how many people you trespass against. It's about the forgiveness. He's like, how do you want me to forgive you against your trespasses if you can't forgive those that trespassed against you? Boom. Think of it that way. So that's why that prayer that from church is, God, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those that trespass against us. You're asking for it because you are trying to go every single day to forgive those that err in human and forgive them divinely. Sorry, I'm snapping because I'm hitting like these boom, 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 like points, because it makes sense and it's true. And the only thing that keeps us from doing it in having these conversations on forgiveness and understanding forgiveness as a component of building a relationship is fear of looking like we're vulnerable by admitting that we were wrong. But admitting that we were wrong is never a bad thing. It allows for the relationship to be seen as we are both equals in this. You error, I error, we both will error, but we can both equally forgive divinely. All right. So, I'm making some really good points. How's it around this? Around like 10 minutes right now. All right. So, forgiveness. Um, talked about the homegirl. Talked about forgiving our trespasses. We would want to be forgiving our trespasses because isn't that what we would want? Isn't that what we would want? Isn't that what we would want? That we would want someone that we upset, that we got mad because of we erroneously didn't think of them in a full roundedness of how our action would affect our relationship. Wouldn't and realize that wouldn't we want to be forgiven? Like, hey, I didn't mean think that this was gonna hurt you that much. I'm so sorry. If this happened to me, I would totally want to be forgiven too. It's it's I don't want to say common sense, but it's spiritual common sense. It's yeah, like, oh, but you don't have to say spiritual, it is common sense. Well, yes, it's, of course it's common sense. It's common sense. And to take it to that point, it's the only thing that keeps us from doing that common sense is the fear of looking vulnerable and the fear of looking like we were wrong. But being wrong is also part of the truth. Admitting that we were wrong is also part of the truth. And you can't really, that's a whole different podcast about talking about the truth, which I'll probably do in the next one. I don't know. But like talking about the truth and recognizing it. Like admitting that we were wrong is also recognizing the truth, that we do not know everything that we are doing, and recognizing the truth as that we are human and we err. That's so truthful that it's a part of being wrong. I don't know if you guys followed on that one. That to me that does. All right, so, we're going good on this one. So that's what I mean about forgiveness and how easy it is. Like when my mom, here's another example. When I came out of the closet, I was 15 years old. My mom was probably like 52, I think. And so, me being the fourth boy out of a family of 5 children, and my mom being who she was, she's never had this experience of having a gay child. So how am I to expect her to understand and accept it so quickly when she's never been through this experience? So yeah, she could have did the work, she could have did some research and all, but that's on all her. And that's something that she probably needs to forgive herself about or admit where she was wrong. But where I admit that I was wrong was to expect her to accept it and embrace me and all this other stuff. Oh, well, she's your mom. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's my mom, but she's also human, and she also errs. So, for me, at that same time, my mom and dad were going through a divorce and stuff like that, and I feel like my mom was having a hard time communicating how she was feeling to my siblings. But there I was, always trying to sit with my mom and try to talk to her how I felt, until one night, where she didn't want to talk about what I wanted to talk about. I left the room saying, well, Mom, don't you think that, as much as you want to be understood, I want to be understood too? That was my first instant of understanding how a relationship should be equal and balanced. But yeah, so it was easy as I evolved in my thought of thinking of what forgiveness is, to forgive my mom because she was just a mom that was having her first experience with a gay child. But now seeing how I grew up and how mine and her relationship is so much better, like I fucking love the shit out of my mom, and I know my mom loves the shit out of me, and she loves hearing my stories. She's laughing, and I'm making her laugh when I'm telling her my stories, and I wouldn't have been able to have that if I didn't forgive her. If I didn't have that sense of forgiving her because I wanted to be forgiven, because, and not be forgiven by her, but forgiven from Sky Daddy. Because why would I hold that against her of her first experience with a gay son? So there it goes. Like, forgiveness is there. And that's what allowed me to just see my mom as an equal person. Yeah, she's my mom, but also she's human. So am I. So Yeah, so that's my experience on the forgiveness part, especially when it comes to a family member. The forgiveness goes and extends to our coworkers and to the people, like I said earlier, that might cut us off on the freeway. The idea is on that is don't let people like this, like that are not mediocre, but like don't play a big role in your bubble of reality. Don't let those small things take away your joy, your happiness, and your serenity. Those little things are meant to test you. Like, hey, sorry, oh no, it's my problem, or my no worries. You're probably late to work, and I'm late to work. That's why I got mad that you cut me off. Because if I was showing up on time, I would have been over here on this lane where nobody would have cut me off. Anyways, that's not the thing. I'm trying to say that it's all your fault, but it's like take responsibility for your part. Like what's your part in it? Like keep your part of the street clean. Like just keep manageable ideas of where your part in it is. And yeah, let's see. Somebody texted me. But yeah, so that's what I was thinking about. What forgiveness is, and I had a really good Facebook live about it, and I'm probably missing some other points that I didn't put in this one, but I'm really happy with this episode so far. And yeah, guys, so now the podcast is actually available on Apple iTunes. Not sorry, Apple Podcast. It's available on Apple Podcasts now, which is fuck yeah. I never thought that I would have a podcast that would be on Apple Podcasts. And thanks to Anchor. I also have my Facebook going on. You can catch the day-to-day Coffee with Adams live episodes on Facebook. Just look me up, Adam Martinez. You should see a cute Latin dude in a pink shirt. That's me. And then also we're YouTube, of course. This is gonna be on YouTube. Just my name, Adam Martinez. Also my handles on all the socials on Instagram, Facebook. I am Adam Martinez. Watching this on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, please. And if you guys have any questions or comments or ideas or thoughts about what I'm talking about on forgiveness, please leave a comment below. Leave a review if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts. Please leave a review. I would love to hear what you think about this stuff so far. And yeah, so I think I'm done with this episode of Coffee with Adam and all the things. And you guys have a nice, beautiful, bright, and shiny evening. And toodles, poodles.